Madison Kirkman, who's working on a very, very important and unique rail preservation project. For those of you who went over to the Nevada State Museum on the tour, I think you all got quite a shock at what a McKeen car really looked like in person. It looks like a submarine out of a Jules Verne book. And you know, at one time they were a very prevalent kind of car, but technologically they were eclipsed so early that, you know, railroads never, they always find some way to reuse things, and a lot of them got reused in a lot of different roles, but that usually means that everything associated with it running on the track is thrown in the scrap. And so it's really unique to have one that's running. So, I had a comment last night. How old are you?
16.
16, okay. Somebody asked me, he said, he's that tall as a teenager? I said, well, hell, I've been this tall since I was 14, so I understand perfectly. You know, I grew up in Southern California, so I know it. Whenever all your schoolmates are about this tall, you know, you know, often you'll get asked, oh, do you play basketball? You know what you ask them? No. Do you play miniature golf? And we'll turn it over to you.
Well, first I'd like to thank the Railroad Passenger Car Alliance for letting me attend the conference this year. They paid for the scholarship, and it's a real honor for me to be here, and I thank you. The journey that brought me here today started 3 years ago when I was looking at a train book called This Was Railroading, and I saw a small picture of a Southern Pacific McKeen car in it. And it kind of sparked my interest from there. I wasn't extremely interested, but I started doing some online research, and I found out that there was a car at the Nevada State Road Museum down here in Carson. So my dad, who had wanted to go there for a year prior, said, let's go up. So in July of 2012, we went up and we visited the car, and everything took off from there. I started doing more and more research, and in that time, I found out that there wasn't really a single source of information on these cars or even motor cars. So I started the website in November of 2012, McKeencar.com. I think that's on there, yeah. And so I started doing more and more research. I found out that one of the car bodies in Alaska used to run down in San Diego, my home county, and that train car would transport passengers from San Diego to a small town of Foster that's since been wiped out by a flood in 1916. And the remaining 17 miles, they would carry a horse-drawn stage or motor stage up to Ramona, my hometown. So this car would transport passengers to my hometown, and so it kind of has some value to me. I contacted the historical group up in Alaska that had the car, the Anchorage Historical Properties Group, for more information, and we had talked for about nine months. And this car, which had gone up to Alaska because it served over in Yuma as minor transport and served in Alaska as just transport between the towns of College and Fairbanks, was sitting outside in the weather for almost 60 years after World War II. And so they had this car, and I asked them what they were planning to do with it. They had it for about 10 years when I first talked to them, and all they had done was torn off the back end of it, and it was in major disrepair. And as you might see in some of the photos, it's pretty sad. But I started my website, and I started merging the website into a website to promote the history of this car, of the Virginian Truckee, and even another car, the Southern Utah McKeen car, which some of you may have seen the drawings down at the NSRM while I was inspecting them. But I kind of started that project. But I got an email last September by the Alaska group that they didn't have a storage place for this car, and they had moved it maybe 5 or 6 times before they contacted me. And they were definitely desperate. They had to get rid of it soon. And so I started a fundraiser on GoFundMe, and so far I've raised just over $10,000. And 4 of those being $1,000 donations, 2 of them from anonymous donors. So I definitely thank those people. But raising over $10,000 is close to what I'll need to move the car all the way down 2,400 miles to my hometown. But I still need a little bit more, and I'll definitely need more for my 501c3, for building a building over the car, and for tools, and etc. So once I get this car, I'll start a restoration, and I hope to have a factory running restoration. And if I can kind of get through the FRA, I'll possibly run excursions across the country in a 1908 McKeen car. Yeah, there's a design drawing I made of the car as factory made. So you can see there was 75 passenger seats, and this car was geared originally from the factory in 1908 for 90 miles an hour.
Whoa.
And it broke the record for traveling from Omaha to Los Angeles in something like 56 hours. Top speed 70 miles an hour in 1908. This car is also possibly the oldest existing aerodynamic vehicle in the world. It's probably one of the oldest all-steel train cars in the world, if not all-steel passenger cars. Self-motorized also. And this is also the sole piece of equipment from the San Diego, Cuyamaca, and Eastern Railway. So it has a lot of importance, not only in San Diego County, but around the world. There's a photo of the car with Foster. The wife there is the wife of the man who the town was named after, Mr. Foster. But let's see. There's a photo of the car taken last November. Yeah. That's the back end, and the front nose has been cut off because they wanted to standardize the car. But they've torn off the back and did a start of a restoration. Their intentions aren't the best. In one article from 2003, they said they wanted to convert the car to a coffee shop or a completely sad destination for a car like this. But there's a design drawing I made of the Southern Utah McKeen car. The red actually, we just did some research, the red actually might be a little bit redder. But the car used to run down in Utah for minor transport, and that car is probably the most unique McKeen car that exists. And, well, that existed even. So, do I have the last slide? No, that was the first one. Well, if you have any questions about the cars, I'll be free to answer them. Any questions? Not one? Okay. Oh, yes?
What is the total that you need to raise to get your car moving?
The reason why the car hasn't moved yet is because I don't have all the quotes to move it down to 2,400 miles. So far, just moving from Anchorage to Seattle alone was $5,100. Trucking it would have been 3 times that. But so once I get the rest of the move made through BNSF from Seattle to San Diego, I should start the move. I'm estimating maybe $15,000 to $20,000. Another question? Yes, right here.
What is your website?
My website is McKeenCar.com. MCKEEN car.com.
That's where people can make contributions if they want to.
Yes, there's a link on the side to the GoFundMe page, and you can donate there.
There's no
yes.
limit either.
Was that for the flat car for hire charge?
Actually, the Alaska Railroad is donating use of the car all the way down from Seattle to San Diego, and as long as I give it back to them soon, they'll give it to me free of charge. So that was a nice contribution on their part. Any other questions? Yes?
So, I mean, obviously that body looks pretty unstable the way it is. Are you going to have to do some bracing and stabilization work in Alaska before it goes on the car? Or?
No, I don't think so. I've had guys tell me, oh, it's going to fall apart, but there's cross
some
bracing.
braces there that somebody looks like
they've lifted the entire weight of the car from the side sills quite a few times. It's not bowed or anything, so it should be fine. But once I get it down here and I want to run it on a train track, I'll probably have it, reinforced and restrengthened. Any other questions? Yes?
Is it going to come with the trucks?
None of the original trucks from the company exist anywhere. So I'll have to completely rebuild that. Thankfully, the NSRM made their truck, so I might be able to copy their dimensions and all that. But I'm going to make my own drive system, and yeah. And there was another question here.
I was going to ask the same one.
Yeah. Well, yes. I don't want to do a hydraulic drive since I'm trying to go for excursion use. Hydraulic drive is a little bit slower but stronger. I'm thinking possibly, there's no work in this really, but I'm thinking a Tesla drive using a Tesla 470 horsepower motor. And I know, kind of crazy idea, but you would have a generator charging the battery, and the battery could charge the motors. And if I just wanted to do like interurban use on the metropolitan San Diego line, I could probably run 100, 150 miles before I actually had to turn on the generator. So, yes?
What's your plans after high school?
Right here.
This schedule's booked for about at least 10 to 20 years, I think.
Any more questions? Well, I guess that's it. Thank you.
This is an example of the kind of young people we want to try to bring into this organization and encourage, because you know, how many of these kinds of projects are out there of things that are really on the verge of completely disappearing, and it's only going to be saved if young people get involved and have a desire to preserve it. And you know, the Tesla drive is an interesting idea because in you know, it's those of you who know me well, you know I work as a consultant in the transit industry, and these are right now the cutting edge and what every city is wanting. There's almost 100 of these streetcar projects for streetcars in cities all over the country. And one of the things that the young, and they're driven again by young people, or as one of my associates calls them, young trendy hipsters. They want a streetcar, you know, and they look back at the old days. Oh yeah, we want something like that. But you know what? They don't want the overhead wires. It's going to defile the view and all this. Of course, to us, the overhead wires were part of the tapestry and the way it looked. But you know, for it to be relevant to modern people, they really want to get rid of the overhead wires. So there's an immense amount of money being poured into development of off-wire streetcar technology to find battery systems and systems that will allow the car to maybe run on wire for part of the distance, but in a historically sensitive neighborhood, they don't want the overhead wires, so it runs on battery power for a few blocks and things like that. Yeah.
One of those Tesla batteries, which you could easily put inside of a trolley car just by hiding it under the boards or something, could probably take a trolley even farther, maybe 200, 250 miles alone.
Yeah, well, that's it. There's all these technologies. They're also looking at inductive technologies where there'll be coils in the street that gets the power invisibly, you know, magnetic field. So this is cutting edge stuff that's coming to the modern transit industry, and if you can apply it to something like this McKeen car, where the original equipment's just missing, but you have the tapestry of the historic vehicle mixed with the modern technology, that could be really something. And I think you may find sponsorships from companies that are designing that equipment for transit to say, this is a good place for us to demonstrate our technology, and so there might be some opportunities for you there if you advance the idea of putting a modern propulsion system in. So that was really interesting. Thank you for the presentation.